Good afternoon and welcome into Two-Man Game here on Claves Online. I'm Matthew Roccio. That's Bob Ramsey here. We'll talk a little bit of basketball, specifically a little bit of Bills basketball at the end. We're going to top it off with some NBA that we haven't gotten to in a while, but obviously, Rammer, we're going to have to dive into that Bills game. First of all, let's start off on the positives. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing pretty well. Life on the road can wear you out a little bit, but it's all good. It was as good a trip as you could have going into New York because that can wear you out a little bit. But everything went smoothly except for the outcome of the game, so it's all good.
Absolutely, and let's dive right into that outcome. It was a rough one for the Billikens. They were trying to move their winning streak to 7 games for the first time ever in the Travis Ford era, and unfortunately, they came up against a hot Fordham Rams team, beat them 75-65. And let's just get right into some of the big questions from this game. I think the big thing that people are going to look at is going to be the shooting numbers. Obviously, not a big offensive game. Really slow start. They were at about 20, 25 points with the first half closing down. But the 2 for 9 from the 3-point line really jumps out. Just right out of the gates, your thought kind of about the flow of the offense as you were calling the game.
Well, I give all credit to the Fordham Rams who, kind of backed up a couple of things I've been saying for a while. Maybe it's even more true than ever in the transfer portal era is, and Mizzou did the same thing. They shut some mouths early. Just because you haven't played anybody doesn't mean you can't beat people. Scheduling is very difficult. And sometimes in a position where you're in a league that may not be in the top 6 leagues in the country, you've got to schedule non-conference heavy. But if you don't, and if you're in a strong league and you've got, you're going to get strength of schedule points in your league, you can sort of build your team up to it. That's what Missouri did. Brilliant scheduling. It worked out great. Now, Fordham did it both ways. In a league that's off this year, maybe not even top 10, maybe 11th or 12th. We could debate that another time, but probably no better than 10th. And they didn't worry about it. They said, we got to win games. We got to put this team together. We got to build positively, figure out who we are, find our identity. And they won games. And they came into the league and lost a couple, and everybody goes, okay, back to reality. Same old Fordham Rams. Not so fast. They righted the ship. They go on a winning streak. And the most important thing about the winning streak, they won 3 league games on the road in a row. This team, what they might be lacking in overall offensive firepower, they pick up in absolute physicality and toughness and desire, a willingness to do whatever it takes to win. I was very impressed with Fordham. And by the way, really happy for them, despite their winning streak continuing at the expense of my Billikens. Happy for them. Talked to their SID, been there 26 years. And last night's win was the biggest win. He goes, the biggest win in 26 years. Unfortunately, 2 times this year's that's happened.
Yeah, I was just about to say.
And now Fordham completely sold out, student section, standing room only, unbelievably loud. Even with headphones on, our engineer had to manipulate things so we could hear ourselves, even with headphones on.
Yeah, that was a really good atmosphere, man.
Very happy for them. Now, back to on the court. Their toughness reminded me of what we saw also in New York at Iona. The 2 worst games of Yuri Collins' career comes as a senior, technically a 4th-year junior, but comes as a senior by 2 teams that said, we don't care what anybody else do. Well, they care, but their number one priority was blitzing Yuri Collins on the first pass or the first move off a screen. And you've been really diving into X's and O's more than even me and have the opportunity. Sometimes in the moment I'm trying to watch the ball to be able to talk about the ripple effect of that first move. But that's my answer to the shooting. The Bills did have a couple of open threes early, maybe one or two late, but what we're hoping to see 9 out of 20, 10 out of 22. Not only were the makes not there, the attempts weren't there. I think it all goes back to the toughness and not allowing Collins to get involved. It's long-winded, but I think it all ties together.
Yeah, I think it accounts for the fact that the game always felt off. I'm a little skeptical. I don't want to take away from Fordham, but there were just so many plays in the first half for St. Louis where Fordham played some good denial on Uri to stop them and force them to put the ball in JP's or Javon's hands to start the possession. But there were a lot of possessions where it feels like SLU acquiesced to that decision almost, where they said, okay, they're playing Uri really hard. Let's have Javon bring this one up and start the offense. And then Fordham was getting away with completely sagging off of Uri Collins as an off-ball player. And so then I think what you saw in the second half was SLU saying, and finally, I think this has been a problem so many times, SLU dictating their own terms and saying, Uri's a good enough dribbler. Even if he's getting pressure, we're going to run our offense through him and work off that pressure. And I think the problem was is that they showed themselves not in that day, they have before, showed themselves not to be good enough to execute in that pressure yesterday. They just weren't good enough that day. And so I want to give Fordham some credit, but I think there's some fault to St. Louis in the first half, but then also a little bit of credit for them making a change and going with the best player on their team in the second half, which is what I thought they did.
Well, your point guard, your All-American point guard, had to sit out half of the first half. What are you supposed to do?
Yeah,
you got a freshman. You got a freshman backup point guard who's not a point guard.
Yeah,
he's a two guard.
I think there's something, but there's also, it was pointed out on the broadcast. Travis, this is tracked by Ken Palm. Travis and SLU played players with 2 fouls at one of the lowest rates in the entire country. And so there are some people who have wondered, this was a question in the Davidson game as well. And the game right before that, Travis's propensity to quote unquote foul out his own players. And so I think that was another question within the reasoning. I think there's fans in the St. Louis fan base who would then say, well, yeah, that brings us to another question about how St. Louis is being coached right now.
Well, I would like to anybody who says that, I'd like to coach against you.
And so you don't think Travis is fouling out his players at playing with 2 fouls like that?
What if he gets a third foul? And I mean, what are you going to do? Again, you don't have. And this is not a shot at Larry Hughes. He's not a point guard. He's had to step in.
Yeah.
And you're gonna play the. What do you do? You're in big trouble. Now, if you want to say, well, how come you didn't get a good point guard in there? Yeah, true. But who's going to be good to play? Who would come to play 5 minutes a game?
Yeah, that was something we talked about all offseason. We kept saying there seems to be a backup point guard spot, but again, who's going to take it?
That's good.
Anything else available that's going to give them, more than 5 minutes per game.
So, I think it goes to not so much decision making. That's too much. I think that's a cop out. What's not a cop out is that you've seen 2 or 3 times this year the opposition, quite frankly, just be tougher. And you've got a group of players that, and I don't mean this in a macho way, but in a technical way of they're softer. Mm-hmm. They're not Fred Thatch. They're not Jordan Goodwin. Would Gibson Jimerson tell you he's as tough as Jordan Goodwin? No, he wouldn't. He knows what his skill set is. Same with Javonte Perkins, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's why you could count on Goodwin and French and some of those guys, Javon Best before them, these tough situations. Now, that's not but here's the problem. You can't concede. So that's where you and I think, would agree. What do you do? I think that in the first half, the Billikens combated it nicely. They kept pounding it in to Francis Okoro, who was brilliant. Brilliant.
Like you said, if 2 more open threes and they were getting open looks in the first half. If two more fall, at some point
Changes everything.
at some point you open up a 10-point lead, and then everything changes down the line from there.
What I did think, and I'd like to talk to the coaches, it's a question and observation, not a criticism. I thought as the second half evolved, to try and free up Yuri, to get him in the best possible situation to take over the game, we brought Franco out too often. Instead, now, and so you say, yeah, let's keep him low, let's get him the ball. But if you're doubling Yuri, how can he get there to get him the ball? It's really quite a conundrum. And I go back to Fordham. I just thought they were remarkable.
Yeah, that was a really good defensive group. I mean, Quisenberry, Khalid Moore, Charlton, and Rose, they all showed out. They all almost averaged 2 steals a game individually, and it's because of a lot of physical, good team defense. So again, I was impressed by that. The point you just made about Okoro, though, I think that does go back to one question we've had as a through line, which is when the pick and roll gets Okoro the ball, when he got one dribble move or one dribble step through kind of layup, then he's successful. But too often when the pass from Yuri has to come to Okoro at the free throw line or further out, he's not as good with doing anything with it. And a lot of times you saw he a couple times, one time he got called for an offensive foul for a charge. Another time he was just dribbling out way too far from his body and they just snatched it, went the other way. And so I think that's a good point for Fordham, but I think that's been an issue with St. Louis in putting Francis in the best position to succeed and score in the pick and roll at times when teams have blitzed them. So it's not saying that SLU's just not playing well. It's that they haven't developed the correct counter for a situation they've seen multiple times that has worked against them.
Well, specific to last night, I disagree completely. Yeah, he made those mistakes. Guys miss shots. Guys get turnovers.
Great. Yeah.
But to the point of getting the ball out away from the basket, he also got 2 assists.
Yes,
what were those? Catching, making a move, seeing the defense come, find somebody in the corner. I think his game is evolving. I agree early in the year, there's no doubt you're 100% right. But I think Franco's game is improving, and I think last night was an example of that.
I'm glad you said that. I actually pulled this up because I was watching the game and I couldn't pull any video, but I was able to just take a couple quick stills. Not the greatest thing, but I mean this is one of them right now that I'm putting up on the screen for you, Rammer. And this is right here. I mean, you see Francis Okoro there at the top of the key. He's got a wide open TJ Hargrove. This is a play that he hasn't always made at the highest level. Eventually, he did snap that pass over to TJ Hargrove, and they got a good look from it. Again, it's a good look that they didn't hit, but nonetheless, that's the kind of play. And earlier on in the game, on the short roll, he made a great pass out to, I think it was either Sincere or Javante early in the first half, where he got it on the pick and roll. He made a great pass, and that was the passing that we hadn't seen from him. So you're I mean, I'm not taking anything away from the game he played. I'm 100% talking about putting him in the best position to succeed against a coverage that they've seen be so successful against them. The blitz works, and they got to figure out a way. And again, one of those ways has always been him making that extra pass. And they've been so much better about that. I think that's been something that has really impressed me. We didn't get a chance to talk about the Davidson win, but that was such a big win in Belk Arena. And I think we saw a lot of great passing. I thought we saw Jake Forrester had a couple really good passes out of the short roll. I thought Gibson Jimerson was a better passer throughout that game as well. And so, he had a couple long skip passes. So you're 100% right. That part of their offense has been getting so much better and was better even in the Fordham game. It just kind of gets glossed over when you don't win.
When you don't win, and it's clear you struggled offensively. There's no doubt about that. And the few times the Billikens, when the defense overplayed and they put it on the floor, but you've got to be so strong on the ball to make the overplaying defense pay the price for guarding you that way, and they just couldn't do it enough.
Exactly, and I think that's Fordham's a good defensive team at the rim, and they block a lot of shots, and they get
Yeah.
a lot of steals. And so that's, I think that's why some people were wondering about the number of 3-point shots. If you're getting those looks early, why not maybe try to get the similar, manufacture more looks in the second half? And that kind of brings me to something you were mentioning earlier. The amount, I saw in the second half, the amount of off-ball movement that they would usually use to create for Gibson and Javonte, I didn't see that as much. And again, you have to attribute that to what Fordham's doing defensively to stop them from doing it. But nonetheless, I thought Fordham shut that down completely.
Yeah.
And we saw, it was a fraction of what we usually see in that kind of movement from SLU. And that's where they get so many of their shots.
Well, an overarching statement is they wouldn't let the Billikens get into their offense, whether it's point guard, whether it's cuts, whether it's screens to get open for, curl screens for jump shots. Fordham wouldn't let them get into it. And the Billikens couldn't or wouldn't do what was necessary to make Fordham pay for those decisions.
And that's what I think the most important thing to pull from this game. And when you talk about where St. Louis is in the conference and where the conference is, when you talk about
they're in first place.
The end goal. Wait, what?
They're in first. So where they are in the conference, they're in first place.
The end goal, aren't they technically in second place now?
No.
Okay.
Tied. Battle for first on Friday.
There you go. And so, but the thing is, it's all about the conference. It's about getting the double bye and winning the conference tournament, because that's how you get into the big dance. And so the questions are, how do they be the best team come tournament time? And right here, I think those things you're talking about are the things to focus on and see. Can they improve that and get it to a more consistent point where you can be more confident that across a week they can play the hardest basketball of their season? That's the big thing. You look at the shooting and you look at the numbers, you see 2 and 9. But if you watch this game and break it down, it's not a game that has me worrying about the shooting like we were in early January. And you tack it on to the end of the run they had against LaSalle and against George Mason and against Davidson, and I'm not that worried about the shooting anymore. There are other parts of the offense. There's still those stagnant chunks, but those are the things I'm not worrying. But there are some things that popped up in this game that you want to see improved going forward to the actual conference tournament time.
You saw what Iona did to the Billikens. You saw what Fordham did. Everybody's got to try it. And we have seen a lot of other teams blitz that first pass or that screen. And the Bills are going to see more of it the rest of the way. So I can't tell you how to combat it. I don't know. It's really frustrating to watch. But when you've got the best point guard and you've got a big man who is starting to dominate at the rim on both ends, you've got some opportunities to figure out answers, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing. Again, we just kind of get glossed over with the Davidson win. Francis Okoro's been incredible. The 20 rebound games a couple weeks ago, and now what he's been able to do offensively, like you said, the passing is coming into his own. He's been incredible. And so my big question for you, looking across the last 7 games, the 6 wins and the loss last night at Fordham, which has been a bigger jump for you when you talk about the Billikens being a successful basketball team? Has it been Francis Okoro and Jake Forrester continuing to develop and finally being the 5s we expected? Or has it been the kind of regression towards or progression towards the mean for Gibson, Jimerson, and Javonte Perkins shooting the ball, which so far over the last 7 games has been the more important improvement for the Billikens and will be the more important improvement going forward?
It's a really good question. That's why you ask him, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to say Okoro and Forrester, because I think the shooting is going to come along and it's not close to where it needs to be. And here's why. Go look at pick out the guys we're talking about who are shooters. Perkins, Jimerson, Parker. Let's take those 3. Mm-hmm. And it's each game, one's up, one's down. These 2 are hitting, this guy's not. We still haven't had really very many of those games where everybody's red hot. And for the Billikens to win the league, assuming they can get into the top 4, to win those games Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you're going to have to, in all likelihood, you would expect that you would need everybody playing well, because we've seen when a team's take a couple of items of your offense away, the Bills really struggle. So 2 of 9, you go 4 of 9, all of a sudden that whole game changes yesterday. Just 2 more threes changes things. Well, you lost by 10. Yes, but it would have changed the flow of the game. So yeah, I think Okoro, Forrester have really come along, and to the point where I'm counting on them. Now I need the shooters, and maybe we include Larry Hughes in that as well, to start to get after it and be more consistent, where the 3-point shot is not, hey, we're on tonight, isn't this a positive, but this is a consistent weapon every single night. That's where they got to get.
Absolutely. And that wraps up our Billikens talk for today. We're going to do a little bit of an end here on the NBA, something we haven't got to talk a lot because we've just been diving so hard into the Billikens, which has been a blast.
Yeah.
But, Rammer, I've been catching back up to the NBA over the last few weeks, and I have a couple thoughts. The first one I want to throw out to you is one presented by our cohort, our colleague, the big man upstairs, Mike Claiborne, who presented to me, and he said, you think you've ever seen this many 50-point games before an all-star break before? And he's absolutely right, by the way. The NBA has set a number of records over the last 30 years for how many 50-point games they've seen already. They're on pace to have the most 50-point games they've ever seen in a season. It's been incredible. I think a big part of it, obviously, is there's not the same defensive intensity, and there's not the same, not even defensive intensity, because I'm not saying it's that much easier to score, but I just think that there's a little bit different feeling when you score your 35th now, and back in the day, I have a feeling the guys probably started hitting you harder when you were going for 40 on their heads, and that doesn't happen today, and I'll just be 100% legitimate about that. So I'm going to throw it to you, Rammer, because I also think one of the reasons we're seeing this is one of your biggest pet peeves, which is too often in the NBA, one team is at full strength, or one team is down 1 player, but the other team they're facing is down 4 players because of a weird happening with players sitting out this season. I honestly think it's a combination of a lot of factors, including, again, not just bad defense, but great offense. There's always that factor. But I really do think there are some negatives and some things the NBA maybe does need to worry about with this recent jump in the 50-point game specifically.
Yeah, it seems like I talk about it every episode, so I don't want to beat the drum too bad, but here's a perfect example. Lakers are playing, and their best 2 players sit, and one of them is not hurt. Davis has got to rest. Now, I don't think it was a dumb move. Davis is injured, he's brittle, and they need him. So I'm not criticizing the idea that we're better we being the Lakers, I'm talking for them, that we're better in the long run if we keep Anthony rested so he stays healthy. I get that, but it's not a good look for the game. By the game, I mean the fans, because that's just one example, and it happens every night in the league, all over the league. The answer is easy, but not realistic. You like that sentence?
Yeah, I like that. No, that's good. And really,
they play too many games, but that'll never change.
It can never change. It's just the way the economics work. It's never going to change. And so I think the only way to solve it, I mean, guys want their money. And here's the thing. The players got to think about this. Players want their money. It would be easier on LeBron James if he played 32 minutes a night. But he still wants to play 36 minutes a night because he's a star player. And I just think, and maybe that's simplifying things too much, but I think, there's players want their money, teams want their money. No one wants to lose anything in the collective bargaining factor. If you lock $20 million off revenue, collectively bargain, players are going to lose, part of their percentage as well. So the players don't want to lose it either. So there has to be a come to Jesus moment on both sides of this thing to get it solved, because everyone's profiting over the problem essentially, and so that's the only way to fix it. Again, and here's the thing: you're not going to fix, there being a lack of, defense across the league either. Because here's the thing: you get the first 3 months, everyone's playing hard because no one knows what's going to happen. Then you start hitting the malaise in March and April, where some teams know where they are, other teams know where they are in a good way, other teams, again, some teams know where they are in a bad way, and then you have the teams in the middle who are fighting, and rarely are they playing each other. They're playing teams that are top 4, so they know where they are. They're playing teams that are bottom 4, so they know where they are. They're playing a lot of 18, 20-year-olds who aren't playing defense. I'm looking at you, Houston Rockets. And so that's the problem then you get now. And again, now you have guys like Kawhi or LeBron who are going to start saving up their body for the playoffs because the team is where they want them to be. And so again, there's a lot of issues here. I don't want that to overlook the fact that it's been an incredibly fun season of the NBA to watch. The Celtics, came out to a raucous start and have cooled off, but still, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown every night are putting on a show. We talked a lot about the Memphis Grizzlies. I talk a lot about the Denver Nuggets. We probably don't talk nearly enough about the Philadelphia 76ers, but that duel between Embiid and Jokic, again, you get 2 stars who are both playing and are both healthy and are both out there to play 40 minutes that night. It's the best television on that night, whenever you turn your TV on, and so that's the beauty of it. That's what we're still getting this season. It's another incredible run in the MVP race between the big men. Chris Middleton came back from his knee injury finally with the Bucks, and looky there, they rip off a 9-0 streak right when he comes in, because if you didn't learn it when they won the actual championship, Chris Middleton is the most underrated second man in the league, maybe the most underrated player in the entire league, and he's proven it again. There are issues, there are some problems, but again, Kawhi and Durant are on the court healthy at the same time. The Nets might be the best team in the league again, or maybe they are more like a 4 seed like they've been playing lately. We don't know that yet. If they both get on the court healthy at the same time, though, it's going to be sure as hell a lot of fun to find out. And so there's a lot of negatives, but man, star players healthy, NBA still just so much damn fun to watch.
I think there are maybe more true stars now than ever. Maybe that goes to the 50-point games.
Yeah.
I mean, we could just start listing off the guys we consider stars, and there are so many of them that on a given night can pop you for 40 or 50 points. And so that the NBA has always been about star power. Now, back in the old days, right, where it's grinding and everybody plays hard every night, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's ancient history. But the stars are still providing a great entertainment value. Anybody who wants to deny that, I think they're just trying to take a position. I don't think it holds water. The star power is as magnetic, drawing eyes to games as it's ever been.
And one last point here, and then we'll sign off for the day. The trade deadline season should be fascinating in the NBA, and the reason I bring that up is only because the finger in the dam that's stopping the NBA trade deadline deluge from opening up is what is going to happen to OG Anunoby with the Toronto Raptors. And obviously the reason I bring that up is because OG Anunoby went to Jeff City High School. And not enough people in Missouri or St. Louis or Kansas City, talk about the fact that OG is a Missouri kid, where he played his high school ball after moving over here from, I believe, the United Kingdom, where his dad was a professor. And so local Missouri kid is right now the biggest name with NBA experts, because where he goes as a 3-and-D defender who 7 foot almost wingspan, he can guard 5 through the 2. And he can knock down threes. He can pick the ball up and score off the dribble. What happens with OG Anunoby, if it's the Memphis Grizzlies, which I would freaking love because I think he's exactly what they've been missing, or maybe even it's something like the Suns put together a combination to try to knock themselves back into contention with their championship roster, maybe having one more last reach with Chris Paul on it. I'm not sure where he's going to go, but all I know is that once the Jeff City grad gets traded by the Raptors, NBA's trade season is going to go wild, and we're going to be talking about 5 or 6 different teams in the top half of the league who look a little bit different come April 1st than they did February 1st, and it's going to be interesting to see how that changes the dynamic.
You're right, and it doesn't matter what you or I or any given NBA fan or pundit thinks who's really a contender or not. The only thing that matters is what does the team think? And that's how you have to look at, oh, well, Phoenix, they can't. Doesn't matter. Does Phoenix think with this move or that move, they can make a run? And I kind of think that depending on the move, gosh, I can think, are there 10 teams that with the right move could win? I feel as great as the Celtics have been, are they perfect? Watch the Celtics. They may, I mean, if they go, you know what, we're really good, but what if Brooklyn or Milwaukee or somebody makes the one move? Can they get past us in a 7-game series? Those are the things that the GMs have to think about. And I think you're right. I think it could be a wild trade time.
And some people might be saying, well, there's already been a trade for a young wing. Why did that not open the floodgates? Because that was one poverty franchise trading to a very overrated franchise, and that was, of course, Rui Hachimura getting traded to Washington or the Los Angeles Lakers. That trade pissed me off, Rammer. I want the best for
trade?
Yes, I want the best for Bradley Beal, Jordan Goodwin, and Wes Unseld Jr. And the best for them is outside of the Washington Wizards organization. I hated that trade. I hated it then. I hate it now. You do not trade away lottery picks for a gaggle of second rounders when you're still a young team trying to and you have your star who locked up for a couple more years and is saying, let's build a team around me, and then you just completely punt on it. I hate what the Wizards are doing with that trade. It bothers me that 3 great people with St. Louis ties, unfortunately, have to be mired alongside it.
I agree with you, but just so it's not a pile-on conversation, what if the Wizards said, we made a mistake? He's not a lottery guy.
I mean, that's
you and I may think he is. Well, what if they go, boy, you know, I saw him in person a couple of weeks ago. Does he have an assist this year?
Not many. He averages about 1 a game.
I could see somebody going, yeah, we took a shot. That was not a lot. That was not, there's not lottery pick value there. We miffed on that one.
And
just a thought.
Maybe that's certainly, I'm sure, what their argument would be. My point would be the guy's 23 years old, and he's been averaging, you know, double digits his entire career. He's low double digits, but double digits his entire career. Again, you can trade him, just don't get 3 second-round picks and try to act like this isn't just you punt. This isn't you just like punting on a first-round pick. You know, 3 years after the fact. It was a bad trade, and I stand by it. And if GM LeBron thinks he can help them win a couple of games, then maybe the Wizards are right. I don't know. GM LeBron doesn't have the best track record in the world, come to think of it. All right, Rammer, that's going to wrap up the 2-man game. We're going to be back a little later in the week, hopefully, talking a little bit of VCU and the Billikens. It is an incredibly tough matchup, like you said. Friday night in Chaifetz is going to be a battle for first place. Whoever wins that game, or if the Billikens win that game, it'll be knotted up at 8-3. They'll have the head-to-head over VCU. So an incredibly important battle coming up between the Billikens and VCU. And we'll be talking about that hopefully here on the 2-man game. Rammer, before we go, I want to tell everybody about Munganast St. Louis Acura. It's crazy. I get in my car today. I turn it on, and I get a little sensor there on my steering wheel, and it just says oil change needed. And I look at my percentage, I see what it's at, and I'm like, okay, sounds good. I get to work, I check my email, and right there is a reminder from Munganast St. Louis Acura that it's time for me to come in for a service on my vehicle. I don't know how. I do not know how the exact day that my car tells me. Munganast also tells me, but that's the kind of service they're bringing to you every day. So that's why I take my car again. I didn't get my car there. I'm going to get my next car there. I didn't get this one there, but I take it there to be serviced because they're on top of things no matter what your needs are. So thank you very much to Munganast St. Louis Acura. Rammer, about time for us to get out of here. Thank you so much for joining me today. I will talk to you later. You have a great rest of your day, sir.
Thank you, Rocc. Enjoyed it. Talk to you later.
Talk to you later, Emmer, and talk to you later, St. Louis. Have a great day.
From our roots in St. Louis, Royal Banks of Missouri is branching out to continue serving you with our locations in St. Charles, Jerseyville, Granite City, and now in Hannibal, Center, and New London. Royal Banks of Missouri, the community bank in your community.